So cell division is this process of basically growing, getting too big. Oops, now I need to divide. And then what are each of those cells now going to do? Well, we've divided. Now what? They're going to grow and then eventually divide. Hey, it's like a wheel, okay, a circle. All right. Okay, now we're going to, I want to brainstorm a little bit. You don't have to write this part down. We just need to brainstorm a little bit. Okay, so there's the question. Why would a cell need to divide in the first place? Brandon.
That way it wouldn't get too big and, you know, implode or something.
Well, first of all, it wouldn't get that big in the first place because it's starved to death. But as a cell's getting bigger, at some point it's not diffusing materials in fast enough. It's like our big cube, and it's not going to be able to survive. Okay, there's one. Give me some other things. Just fire them away. Why does a cell need to divide in the first place?
Form an organism.
What else? Go. We need to elaborate on a little bit more of that. Why would I need to make more?
To establish a healthy organism.
Hang on, Abby. Why would we need to make more cells? It's a great idea. You can steal Aaron's answer. What'd you say, Aaron? Yeah, you did.
What did you actually answer?
To repair.
Okay. There's some other things. Keep going. Give me a couple more ideas. That's a little bit different. To replace dead cells.
To fill up empty space.
I'm just writing it down. Not saying they're right or wrong. Let's go. What else? Give me a couple more.
To do things faster.
Man, that's nice and specific.
Yeah, make life easier.
Just things. Just things. Okay, what else?
To get a better pay.
I'm not gonna write that one down. There is a limit. There is a limit. It's got to be on topic. Give me a couple more. There are still some more reasons you would need more cells.
Are all of those right?
The organism to survive.
Would it be to help break down other things?
The survival, would that count as defend against viruses and bacteria?
Ooh, I'm going to throw that in here to break down
Alright.
bacteria, viruses. Nice.
The organism can grow.
Ooh, growth. Nice. I can think of at least one more big one.
To have a friend.
Recycling.
You're on the right track.
Oh, to have a friend wasn't right.
Baby friend. Yeah, you could have a friend. Okay. All right. Anything else? Throw on the board.
What's Tyler?
Something about recycling. I don't know.
That would probably go and break down other stuff.
Got your recycling.
Oh, I see what you did
I
there.
got your recycling on board. Okay. That's actually not that bad of a list. Now, if I had to pick ones that maybe are closer to there, these are kind of almost the same thing, but a little different.
Fill up empty space.
These are almost the same thing.
Yes.
And the rest are tied in
Dude,
to some other things, but these are the big four, and you hit all four. That's awesome. Okay?
Yes.
All right, so just to kind of summarize it, so I have this general question, why divide? I would write these down. Besides just because they want to. Okay? They get too big. All right, now you got to be careful. don't leave it there. Don't just put that. If you put that on a quiz or something, I'll give you a -1/2. Because what does too big really mean?
Out of how many points?
1. It'd be half credit. Okay? So if I said, why should a cell divide, and you say it gets too big, it's too big for
What?
diffusion. Okay, so it's still diffusing, but it's still pink in the middle.
That makes sense.
Okay, the material's not getting to all parts of the cell. Got it. It would take a long time. If the cell had time, we could let it sit. It's going to get to the middle, but we don't have time. Okay. Second one you guys came up with. You guys check. So you got to check for that. Check for that. Repair or replace. All of us have been cut at some point. They didn't stay.
Never.
Cut. Okay, your body has an unbelievable ability to repair damage. Okay, you break a bone. You sprain an ankle. It's not like that for life. All right, you have ability to replace. So,
Why are stabs like so short?
okay, the whole process of scabs.
Just to keep it from any other
Scabs. Imagine a net. Okay, imagine like a fish net or something, and it gets a tear in it. That's like a tear in your skin. Okay. What your body tries to do is repair the net. But the problem is when you repair that, it doesn't get exactly stitched back together the way it was supposed to. And so that's what can leave a scar. Okay, it's trying to put the tissues and materials right back where they were. Well, it's a little off. It's a little shifted off. And so you end up with maybe a little scar. If it was a bigger wound, you can have a bigger scar. Okay, but the idea is you're trying to repair that damage. And some of the cells that come to repair the damage basically have different jobs. Some of them are stitching the net together, and some of them are making this hard cap that protects the cells that are being rebuilt underneath. And eventually that protective falls off because underneath is solid again. Pretty cool method. Yeah, but yeah, you don't want, what you don't want to do is what most people have a tendency to do. We pick, and what you're basically doing is tear.
And it's making it
You
more
keep
scar.
tearing the net. And so you tear that over and over and over, eventually you're going to have, for sure,
Right there,
a scar.
I tore it like 3 times already. I hate scabs.
But what you're doing is you're taking away the protective cover. Okay, there's a protective cover that's meant to keep bacteria and other stuff from getting back in there.
But I don't
And
like
you
the
just
scab.
keep ripping off. It bleeds again, you just tore it again. And so it reforms the scab and it's perpetual.
All scab is dry blood.
It's more than that, but it's partly dried blood. It's old white blood cells that have all fallen
Kind of looks like
into the attack. There's platelets. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's whole bunches of stuff.
Does it taste like
I don't know.
We'll find out.
Okay, that's a good question though. So if it's too big, it's going to need to split. If it's repairing or replacing, we got to have healthy cells replace the ones that were lost, and to grow. I mean, we all started off as one cell. Thankfully, we didn't stay that size. Okay, so we grew to several billions, trillions of cells, and that's why you are now bigger. The one that I kind of mentioned as far as reproduction, I'll give you a vocabulary term you may want to jot down, is gametes. Gametes are the sex cells, which are the sperm and egg cells,
Yeah, that's what I just said.
which are a little different. They're different than your normal body cells because they have half of the DNA, which we'll get into how do we do that.
That'd be cool.
Okay, but we've got 46 chromosomes in a normal cell.
And each one has a
Sperm and egg cells only have 23 chromosomes, so when they fuse,
Sharks
you
never
get the
sleep,
right,
right?
you get the right number.
Sharks never sleep, right?
Well, fish in general don't sleep. They slow down.
Do cells sleep?
Cells can kind of go through, there's a cycle, which we'll get into next week a little bit, Robert, but they go through a life cycle of their own. There is a stage that some might call sleep,
They just chill.
but just because they're not as active.
When you're dead,
No, that's
all
good.
your cells
It's a good question. What? Andrew?
When you're dead, so like all your cells will be gone.
Oh, this is getting into weird territory. All right, so if you're
They
dead,
become breakdown and then
your
they
cells
get
don't know you're dead.
So they're still working.
They're still working.
That's gross.
That's for the weird territory. So that's why people's nails will grow still. Your hair will still grow some. I mean, to a point until, once the blood stops flowing, energy stops flowing, food stops flowing. All right, so the resources your cells have stockpiled are still there, and they're living off of that. Okay, so the blood has stopped moving for the whole organism, but at a cellular level, each cell is still alive until it runs out of food, and then it runs out of energy, and then it dies. But yeah, there's several days, maybe even a week. I don't know. I haven't looked that up.
So like when you're dead, your cells are still alive.
Yeah,
Make a last stuff come
It's
on.
weird.
it's weird.
What's the useless organ?
What's the useless organ? Kidney.
What are we talking about?
No,
there's
kidney
these
What are
filters.
you on? We're on something totally different. We're
I was
talking about
thinking
being alive after
I was
death.
thinking about if cells
Do
do sleep, would how many of them would sleep and do they take shifts and stuff? And, no, not like shifts. Like do they know when others?
There's third shift,
When they
second
have to
shift.
work, and where would they sleep? Would they just stay in everybody's way, or would they go someplace like in the fat or someplace to
They'd
sleep?
go to the appendix.
Well, I would hesitate to say, well,
I'm
the only
thinking this.
useless organ is the appendix, but it's
Yeah.
not an organ really. We just don't know what its job is.
How do we-
Maybe it has a job, and we just don't know what it is.
How do we not know what the job is?
We
We
just-
know everything
Yeah,
else.
I don't like the
It
Yeah,
doesn't-
dude, we should try. We should
It doesn't
find out.
seem to have a purpose now, but it's thought to have had a purpose at some point. Just because other animals that have a similar structure, it is part of their digestive system. But for us, it's a dead end. In other words,
Like
So
it does,
if something gets down into it, it can cause actual problems. And
it does something
No, but
in our early
so-
lives.
it
or-
could.
So it's better just to cut it out.
There is a move for many people to have elective surgery and have it removed before it is a problem. I think that's jumping the gun a little bit.
Oh, there's one kid that is.
Most people will never
He had his
have any
appendix
problem
cut
with it.
out. No, I know.
That's
And
what
most
cells can
people
sleep.
aren't gonna need to ever surgically have it removed, but.
I bet that's where the cells.
That's like
I
their
have two
concept.
questions.
Oh my
Actually, one story in my My friend, she like had her appendix taken out, but it like exploded, but it felt like a sac around itself.
Us four. We like coats.
So it like had scar tissue around it.
And
It
then,
exploded, but it didn't explode into the rest of the body. Wow, that's fortunate.
I think it was Kara. It was Kara Gallagher.
Maybe a scientist.
I'll have to ask her about it. She
Yeah,
knows
but it
more.
like exploded, but like it had a sac around it, so it didn't go through the rest of her body.
Sounds good.
And then, so we have two kidneys, but if we gave one kidney away, is that one pretty much useless to us, but we just have it for backup?
That's what we think. You only really need one.
Kidney.
The other is a spare.
Don't they cleanse?
And, having one or two isn't better than one. A lot of people think, oh, I can filter my blood twice as fast. No, it's not really.
It doesn't work like
It's
that.
not like that.
It's
It's
kind of
just in case
there
one
just
shuts
in case
down.
you
It's
need it.
there. I
It's a
mean,
backup.
you can live a perfectly
Then how do you
100%
get kidney
life.
stones?
Kidney stones is when you have too
Waste.
much dry minerals.
Yeah.
There's minerals that get filtered out, and if too much builds up, it can kind of form a
That would
mass.
How do you
Well,
keep
we
from
heard
getting
for
that?
cancer.
Drinking lots and lots and lots of water, not holding your pee too long. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot. All right, Haley.
So if, like, you get like,
Man, who is this class? Where'd you guys come from?
like
Chris never asked this many questions.
kidney, like,
We're trying to
what,
waste
like if you
time.
have to take one kidney out,
A second.
Shut up,
let's
Aaron.
say you have to like get the kidney taken out and you need a replacement, you know?
Actually, I have a good question.
Why do you, can't you just go off your other kidney? Do both are both of them?
All right, wait a minute, you lost me somewhere in there.
Yeah, I
Okay.
got
Repeat the whole
This
question.
is like a pretty
You got your
convoluted.
kidneys.
Yeah, you got two?
Two.
Yeah,
So something happens to one of them, or something happens to both of them to where you need someone else's.
yeah.
Why can't you just use your other one? You're just something
Well,
bad.
if both fail,
Yeah.
if both fail though, then you can't.
Can't use the other one.
Yeah, you only have two.
So, well, that's what I meant.
If
That
one
means-
failed, then you're still okay.
What if
If both fail, then you're going to need an organ transplant. Maybe you've got an identical system. It doesn't need to because then it'd be a perfect match. And that's one of the big arguments for human cloning technology is could we somehow manipulate an embryo so that it doesn't turn into a full-blown organism, it just turns into
the organ that you
an organ, it just turns into one, you know, a lung, or it turns into a kidney. All right, Aaron, last question, then we're going to go back.
That's not really a question. It's
Okay.
more of like a comment.
Got it.
My sister, she had appendicitis,
Okay?
and they took her into surgery and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and we got to see it.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Like the video of it? Ooh, that's pretty cool. Most of the time, I mean, it's not, most people want, you know, they wonder if, oh man, I got a really, really sharp pain, and they think, oh, maybe
Ends up
appendicitis.
being
I mean, it's something that you would not mistake for anything else. I mean, from the way it's been described to me, it's taking a red hot poker and shoving it into your skin. Okay, I mean, it's
Like a cattle
it's
brand?
a brutal pain. It's a sharp. It's called an acute. It's an acute pain response. So it's not something that gets a little bit better, a little bit better.
Well, the worst thing about like all that, my dad wasn't home; he was at work, and he's the only adult that lives with us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of like
Yeah, it could be really, yeah, that could be really scary.
no,
Could be really scary.
more like throw her in
Well,
the
I mean, you
drug.
don't know. I mean, it's not something that you typically would experience. Okay. Man, good discussion though.
I called my grandma up there.
We do need to get a little bit farther. Okay. So there's two kinds of cells. You with me, gentlemen? All right.
Yeah.
Two kinds of cells. We got prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Let's look at the simpler group first, because they don't have a nucleus to contend with. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Before any cell ever divides, they have to copy the DNA. And I think that makes sense. That's the instruction manual. That's the blueprint. I can't split a cell without making a copy of that, because then I'd end up with a cell that has incomplete
It's
directions.
like a cell with a backup
Okay,
file.
so I've got to have a whole backup, and then split, and then I'm going to give each cell its own set of instructions. So let's look at prokaryotes first. Only bacteria. The way they do this is something called binary fission, and the name gives you some clues. Binary.
Singular.
Wait a minute. Bi.
Oh, that's two.
Two. Okay, so we got binary is two. Fission means to split. It's the opposite of fusion. So fission, I'm splitting into two cells. Now this is for bacteria, because they're only one cell big. It's a form of asexual reproduction. Okay, there's one partner, one adult. Offspring are clones of the parent. This is not what we do. Okay, so asexual reproduction in many ways is faster because you don't have to find a mate. Okay, it's simpler. Okay, it usually involves a lot less steps. Okay. All right, let's go through it. And it's nature's form of cloning. Bacteria have been doing this method of cell division for billions of years, potentially. Okay, so it's a very effective method of getting more offspring. The downside is it doesn't give you much variety.
Ever since the
Okay, so you've got a bacteria dividing. Its offspring are going to be exactly the same as what the parent was. Okay. Steps. Let's look at the first step. Little picture. Those that aren't taking notes, good memory, I hope.
Yep.
Okay. So first step, like we said before, we have to copy the DNA. This is called replication. Makes sense? That's where we get the word replica. So replication, I'm making a copy of the DNA. I'll teach you how the cell does that in a couple months. Okay. But for right now, you just need to know we're copying the DNA. Bacteria is a little bit different. It doesn't have a nucleus. So its DNA is just floating around inside, and it's called a plasmid. Plasmid is a circular piece of DNA. And it's usually just floating around inside the cell. So that's why I labeled the cell membrane, that's it. Now, if we're copying the DNA, let's draw a plasmid in our second picture, and then draw a copy. Okay, so presto changeo, we've got a cell with 2 DNA strands. All right, that's halfway. We're already halfway done. DNA copied. The next step would be we need to split the cell. We got to split the cytoplasm. Well, the cytoplasm is everything inside. Okay, which may be some ribosomes, some proteins and things, but there's no Golgi, no ER,
All this happens.
no vacuoles. This is all in bacteria. Okay. So, go ahead and draw your 2 plasmids. You got to find a way to split those apart from each other. It's pretty ingenious how this works, but it's tough to draw. So maybe just watch, but you can draw it too. What the cell will start to do, I'm going to start it kind of simply and then I'll get more complex. The cell will start to add membrane in the middle. Okay, it just makes it a little bit thicker. Well, then it adds more membrane to what's already there. Add more membrane to what's already there. Add. And eventually you get cell.
So it just pretty much cuts it right down the middle.
Yeah, but it doesn't cut it from the outside.
Cuts it from the inside
It
out.
cuts it from the inside out, which is kind of weird.
I
Okay, so
actually like that.
these 2 actually will end up being physically connected together at that point.
Because if it was cut from the outside in, bacteria would get the cell.
Well, these are the bacteria.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that's even weirder.
That makes sense.
Bacteria inside bacteria. What's up?
Did I notice you had some colored pencils?
I did. Huh?
Could I be so brazen as to ask the
Yeah.
board?
Have a good day, everybody.
All right. So what's your homework?
Just the whole fruit?
Homework.
You get paid, you should
Key
come apart.
terms. Key terms.